All right, so President Trump is going viral right now for his comments with the press on his way back to America. And this is ordinary in some sense because he always spars with the media. But this time he mentioned treason and he mentioned a lot of different interesting things. So I want to go over some of that, the clip, as well as some implications, high level, sort of where we are at, as well as what's happening in some sense behind the scenes, because what's happening now is monumental and it's only going to get more interesting. So let's get into it. So this is like the top trending topic right now on Twitter as well as some other outlets. But he was asked a question, it was framed in a certain way, and then he had this to say. So let's take a look.
What would the use be of repeating the bombing? You did it for 38 days.
Well, no, we did.
And you did not get the political changes in Iran.
No, I had a total military victory. But the fake news, guys like you write incorrectly. You're a fake guy, and guys like you write about it incorrectly. We had a total military victory. We knocked out their entire Navy. We knocked out their entire Air Force. We knocked out all of their anti-aircraft weaponry. We knocked out all of their radar. We knocked out all of their leaders, number one, and then we knocked out all of their leaders in the 2nd Division, and we knocked out numerous of their leaders in the 3rd Division, and they're very confused. We've had a total victory, except by people like you that don't write the truth. You know, you should write. I actually think it's sort of treasonous what you write, but you and the New York Times and CNN, I would say, are the worst.
So on another war.
You should know better. You know better. Your editors tell you what to write, and you write it. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Subject of another war. Is there any?
I actually think it's treason when you write like they're doing well militarily and they have no Navy, no Air Force, no anti-anything. By the way, we knocked out 85% of their manufacturing for the missiles. We knocked out everything. We haven't knocked out other than one bridge that we did because they misbehaved. But we have bridges we could knock out. We could knock out their bridges and their electrical capacity within 2 days. We could knock out the whole thing. And then I read the New York Times and they act like they're doing well. And everybody knows it. That's why your subscribers are way down. You know, the Times subscribers are way down because it's fake news.
Did you discuss?
Way down, way down.
Did you just?
And then I'm going to skip a little bit because he also says this with BBC.
That is under investigation.
Were you able to confirm yet that it was a U.S. missile?
Who you with?
BBC for the radio.
Fake BBC. You mean the ones that put AI in my mouth? The ones that gave me, had me saying a statement that they now admit was not true? That the ones that put terrible words in my mouth and then had to admit that it was fake? The ones that are being sued now for $5 billion and don't know what to do? You're with BBC? They're another fake outfit. Yeah.
You know, I just want to personally just take a second. And as I'm watching this with my spirit of discernment and just trying to get a sense of what the truth is, and I've told you guys for a very long time, as I have been watching Trump since 2020, especially during the COVID situation and how he was doing press conferences daily, it boggled my mind. This is when I first, in some sense, woke up to the media lunacy where he would say an entire press conference for like an hour or two or longer. And I would take notes. I would have to do this for actually my day job and sort of make notes and reports. And as I was doing this objectively, I could see the very next day how the media was twisting certain words. This is, mind you, not factual in the sense of I don't know what was happening behind the scenes. I didn't know what the WHO and what the CDC and these guys were talking about. I didn't even know health, like truths and all that stuff. But really, just from the pure fact of Trump saying something, and then the very next day, somebody having a certain bias or hate to want to twist his words in a certain way, that's when I really had a wake-up call. And of course, Trump here is mentioning the BBC's lawsuit, the defamation. And if you don't know, just very quickly, back on January 6th of 2021, during the, very famous Capitol stuff that happened, BBC made an editing error in the sense of BBC intentionally and maliciously edited his speech to splice together out of sequence phrases about marching to the Capitol. And so this whole lawsuit, this is a defamation lawsuit, and BBC admitted that the edit caused a mistaken impression and apologized, but argued the edit was an error of judgment rather than malice, and that it didn't harm Trump's reputation, citing his re-election. But of course, this is ongoing. The trial is set for next year, February, but it's a big deal in the sense of how media can in some sense get away with skewing and creating perception that would skew, in some sense, voters, but also obviously the impression of how he looks in the world. So this whole media thing is coming to a head, not just in this lawsuit, but just this whole aspect of the prince of the airways, if you talk about it from a spiritual perspective, of Satan and who controls the narrative. And so a lot of this, as Trump has been pointing out since his first term, fake news about how the media has a certain bias, whether it's liberal, conservative, whatever it is. But Trump here mentions that this is treason, and it could be like treason in some sense. So I just wanted to take a look here. Title 18 USC 2381. This was about treason. So here, and again, this is some AI summary, but basically saying, why is it or how is it that this could be where a reporter is crossing the line of beyond protected First Amendment speech, and how it could be treason. And so here it says that treason is defined in this title USC 2381, which states that whoever owning allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort, is guilty of treason. So for a reporter to be charged under this statute, the reporting would generally need to constitute a deliberate act of providing, quote unquote, aid and comfort to an enemy of the United States during a time of war. So in specifically 2881, where you can be guilty of treason, this section requires specific intent to betray the U.S. Simply reporting, quote unquote, the wrong thing or being anti-government is usually protected by the First Amendment. To reach the level of treason, the act must be done with purpose of assisting a defined enemy. And also section 2382, misprision of treason. This section deals with failing to report treasonous acts. If a reporter has knowledge of actual treasonous acts by others and conceals them rather than making them known to authorities, they could be charged under this section, and goes on. But it has to be in some sense an overt act of treason. But that's interesting because of what Trump said there. Because what has Q mentioned before? This is post 2901. Internal civil war, all-out assault against the duly elected president of the United States. We have never experienced anything like this in our history. Treason and sedition at the highest levels of office throughout many departments. Propaganda arm. Fake news media of the D Party in full attack mode. No facts, only statements. Propaganda arm. Fake news media of the D Party limit sheep you from learning the truth. Propaganda arm. Fake news media of the D Party retain control of narrative, control over you, in parentheses there. House D's in full attack mode. No facts, only statements. Senate D's in full attack mode. No facts, only statements. This is their last stand. Fear of prosecution, fear of public learning the truth, fear of losing power, bribes, blackmail, threats, all being deployed. We are at war. And so I'm not saying that in that specific instance there was bribes, blackmails, and threats, but it's interesting, this post. And then post 561, MSM is fake news, propaganda, talking points, 4 a.m., private email addresses. Again, this is saying that they are getting top-down funneled talking points about what to do, what to say, 4 a.m., private email addresses, paid contractors, judgment day. And then post 529, be ready, MSM coming big way. We see all, we hear all. Fight, 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 conspiracy push coming. Mainstream media lost control. D lost slave grip. D lost center voters. Libs are minority. MSM projects as big movement. Fake news, 4 to 6% lost forever. And here, 4 to 6%. This is a very famous part of not ever, in some sense, getting those that are controlled by that mainstream media and the narrative to be lost forever, and they will never wake up. And then, of course, the other day I mentioned post 59, where it says in this one part, why has POTUS dedicated so much time into labeling the mainstream media as fake news? Here, post 3334, attempts by Dems, fake news, and those guilty of treason to shape the public narrative prior to by providing falsehoods will fail. Truth to light, no sleep in DC. And then post 3310, threat to controlled narrative. Other than POTUS, can you name a group more attacked than Q by the fake news media? Multiple attacks deployed include framing for crimes, ThinkBridge, Mob Boss, etc., desperation, reconcile using logic, think for yourself, dividers will fail. And then 3433, fake news attacks only validate the message. Old guard threaten, Think size and scope of continual mainstream media attacks. Godfather the Third, Q. So as I look at even this sort of clip of what's happening, these guys, in some sense, and especially if you are a believer and you're awakened, you have discernment of what's going on. Many people, they have an agenda. They have a certain spirit that is hovering over them, controlling them, and they see it in a certain light. And especially if they have an agenda to put the president down. Trump and many others talk about Trump derangement syndrome and how at all costs they want to sort of target them because they have a negative sort of lens or bias against this person. And so for a very long time, and this is how the Lord has awakened me to such a degree, and many others like you that are watching this, is that you have to seek the highest realm, which is truth, instead of looking at certain things, people, biases. And even as I look at this, right, I think very, very objectively. There are times where Trump, he's only human. So sometimes he gets defensive, right? Because he might be misinterpreting or misunderstanding a certain person. So you have to see that part of it too. So he might say something in defense when the reporter in some sense might actually genuinely want to know something, but his tone or the way he approached Trump might be off-putting. So Trump has to react defensively. Other times, especially in this instance, he knows what the truth is because again, he's the commander in chief. He has all this military knowledge. So when he's spewing certain things and people are thinking they know more than the president, when of course he gets briefings by the world top officials for whatever it is, economics, for health, for the military, he has this knowledge. And of course you may not like him or the way he portrays his speech, but he has that information objectively. And so when he's saying these truths, like Iran and 80% of certain things are off, and these reporters think they know something and they're coming out and saying, no, you're wrong about this. Again, that part of it, you have to look at it objectively. Who has more information and why is it that they're misinterpreting or reporting on certain things, especially with this whole war going on? And then the other thing you have to realize is that sometimes Trump, because of the sake of national security and for this whole movement, if you want to even include Q and many others in there, is that in some sense, he has to say things with, I don't want to say it too negatively, but a white lie, or he has to suppress the truth and sort of, or maybe even overtly say a certain lie for the sake of national security, for the sake of saving the lives of the world. And so he will say certain things. And again, I'm not saying I know and I can discern what that is, but he'll say certain things. The media goes along with it. They may question it, but he has to, in some sense, play that role of acting in that way. And so there's different realms of how you understand the interaction, the truth, what he says, because you don't, again, want to just believe everything that he says, but you discern, you understand and see what is the context, what kind of hat do they put on? And what is it that is happening? Are they being blackmailed or being told talking points or questions? Or is it that they have a skewed mentality of discerning what's going on because they are liberal or because they don't have the Holy Spirit or because they have this whole like biased mindset, Trump derangement syndrome or whatever it is? Or is there other acting going on? Is there other humanly parts of even Trump or his team going on? So all of that plays into this whole banter, the interactions, and also what's being portrayed and what's being shown on the news. And especially with independent journalism going on, covering certain things, coming out and saying, hey, this is what you missed. This is the perspective of the truth in some sense. And especially with the Anons and what they're researching, that fight is big as well. And so there's a lot going on. I've said a lot of things, but just want to give you guys this update because, again, this is big in the sense of, yes, it's going viral, but also Trump has mentioned many times the downfall of the media. Does it come out in the proper, maybe the courts and the defamation stuff and many others, or is there other things that will happen militarily speaking to sort of put down this treasonous, if you want to say it, that acts of what this propaganda arm or however you want to label it is happening? The Lord is going to deal with falsehoods, lies, misdirection, misperception, misinformation, all this stuff, especially when they have a mouthpiece to try to project what is the truth. So the Lord is going to deal with it. And also you're going to see it play out in the natural realm. I believe it in the next, I don't know, I'm not going to even put a timeline on it, but you're going to see more and more of this. And we're already seeing it happen in the natural where Trump is inviting other truth seekers, independent journalists, Anons, many others that are coming in, not just the classic mainstream media. So more to come, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Also, if you guys want to support me, you guys know I'm listener supported, need all the support I can get. Right now, we're going through a very difficult time. I'm also in the midst of a lawsuit. You guys know about this. It's wrongful termination for my freedom of speech and what I've said on the internet from my previous employer. So if you guys want to help me with that as well, would love it. All the information also for my ministry and everything I'm doing behind the scenes is down below in the description. description, givesendgo.com/Chrisyoonyt. I also have PayPal, Zelle, Venmo if you guys want to help me out in that way. So love you guys. More to come. Talk to you guys very soon.